Welcome to True Crime with Strategic Eyes.
Strategic back again.
Oh, hell no.
We totally screwed that one up. Let's try it one more time. Strategic back again. All right. You know what? The first sound effect is really, truly how I feel about this stream, because we don't normally cover trial coverage, because I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of my viewers are going to be upset with me when I say this, but it's exceedingly boring to me. Trial coverage is like the most boring thing you could do on true crime. I feel that way because I have to go to trial all the time. I literally live in a courtroom. Once you start working a caseload in a busy department, it just starts adding up. And then it turns out like every other week you're being called for trial. That's if you're active and you're working in a busy department. But this is a case I want to cover, and we're going to cover it today. Let me see if they're actually streaming. This is the case of Uvalde. Uvalde broke my heart. Uvalde hurt me. Uvalde is one of the biggest tragedies in law enforcement in modern history. And the people who were supposed to protect, the people who were not supposed to be cowards, failed us. And now they're being brought to bear. And this is the first trial of a police officer in the Uvalde tragedy. An instance where these police officers were supposed to protect and serve, and instead they were cowards. They ran away. I want to give you guys some backstory. We're waiting for the trial to actually start. It starts today, first day. In that time, I want to give you guys some backstory because it happened a couple of years ago, and some of you may not know or remember, or maybe you're too young. We have an audience that really just stretches across all age ranges. So let me play this really good documentary by WFAA real quick to bring you guys up to speed on what happened in Uvalde, and then you'll understand why this officer, Officer Adrian Gonzales, is being charged with not helping little children. I believe it was 14 kids and 2 teachers died that day. That's off the top of my head. We'll get the actual number soon, but my mind, because I'll never forget about you, Uvalde, 14 kids. They let those kids stay in the room with the shooter as he slaughtered them. And dozens and dozens and dozens of police officers stood outside of that classroom and did nothing. It took Border Patrol, ladies and gentlemen, Border Patrol, a federal agency, to come in there, their BORTAC unit, to come in there and finally end the violence. Watch this.
Time can be cruel. The families in Uvalde know this better than anyone. Most have now watched the videos showing what happened inside Robb Elementary during the 77 minutes that forever changed their lives. At 11:28 a.m. on May 24th, 2022, surveillance footage captured a man crashing a truck into a ravine near the school.
Oh my God, they're running. I don't know why. Oh my God, he has to die.
Moments later, he ran towards the campus, firing his weapon. A teacher who was standing outside immediately realized something was wrong. She ran inside, shut the door that had been propped open with a rock, and called 911. The door she pulled shut should have locked automatically, but it didn't. At 11:30, teachers across the campus.
I remember when they tried to blame that teacher, like she's the reason why he got inside, but it's not. They did their investigation. She did exactly what she was trained to do. And the door just wasn't working. That's a school district problem. And at the end of the day, the only people that failed anyone in this situation was the police. Let's keep going.
Began locking down their classrooms as the gunman continued firing.
Apparently he's out there with a rifle, so they're with us.
At 11:33, the shooter slipped through that unlocked door, walked down the hallway, and entered classrooms 111 and 112, opening fire. As responding officers arrived, their body cameras captured the chaos.
Oh, shots fired! Get inside! Go, go, go!
Surveillance and body camera video showed officers reaching the hallway within 2 minutes. Investigators say during that time, the shooter fired more than 100 rounds with his AR-15 rifle.
Shots fired inside the building, Uvalde!
At 11:36, two groups of officers entered the school from different directions. According to investigators, Uvalde School District Officer Adrian Gonzales was among the first to go inside, followed by District Police Chief Pete Arredondo.
The devil himself. Let me not say that. Not a devil. A coward. We're going to reserve the devil for people who truly do devilish things. And we see a lot of that on this channel, so we're not going to misuse titles. Remember what I tell you guys all the time on this channel, words have power. Words have power. Pete Arredondo is not a devil. The coward. Let's keep going.
11:37, the gunman fired at officers as they approached the classrooms. Two officers were grazed by the bullets and retreated. None
Ran away like cowards.
shot back, according to an after-action report conducted by the Justice Department. Instead of engaging an active shooter, as they are trained to do, investigators say officers treated the situation.
The training is clear. At least the training now. After Uvalde, American policing changed. And that's why it was so sad to saw what happened in Australia, because Australia comes to America all the time to be trained by American police. Everybody in the world changed their training after Uvalde. Uvalde was not an American tragedy, it was a world tragedy. The whole world learned from Uvalde. And the training after Uvalde is, it doesn't matter if you're one officer, two officer, or 10. Whoever arrives on scene, their mission is to go and stop the shooter, even if that means you lose your life. That is literally the training. The training is when there's an active shooter, you must take action. You have to go neutralize the threat by any means necessary. Period. Even if somebody gets hurt by accident, like if there's a little collateral, whatever, the government will cover you because you need to stop that shooter, because that shooter will cause mass destruction if left unchecked. Hence, 14 dead kids. 2 dead teachers. Dozens wounded. Never forget Uvalde. Let's keep going.
Like a barricaded suspect.
He's inside this building. We have him contained.
Chief Arredondo didn't go in
This
either.
guy.
Investigators say he called for backup and waited. At least one officer was heard pushing to act.
We need to get these kids out of here.
More officers from DPS, Border Patrol, and other agencies arrived.
In a situation like this, everybody's on the ground. They're either bleeding, they're hiding, whatever. You engage. The only person who's going to be standing up is the bad guy. Engage him. The only person who's going to be standing up is the bad guy. You must engage him.
Scared, man. I know.
Yet still, no one confronted.
Guys, do me a favor. We're going to have a small crowd today. We've been live for 8 minutes. We don't even have 100 people watching this. That's okay. Because the good work must be done. But I do need you guys to do your part. For the 49 people who are now in this room, you got to hit that like button. All right. Maybe the regular viewers are sleeping. Maybe they're not interested in Uvalde. We need to get new viewers. We need to get the people who are interested in Uvalde. And the way that we get those people is if you guys hit that like button. And that's another thing, too. Like Flojo just said, it's 7 a.m. in LA. You know, a lot of my audience is out of the country and on the West Coast. So these people are sleeping. These are good people. They sleeping. So please, for the people who are on the East Coast, people who are Mountain, Pacific, and Central Time, the people who are close by, you got to hit that like button so we can get more people to watch this stream via the algorithm. Let's keep going.
The shooter. Instead,
That's true. A lot of my audience is on the West Coast because we do a lot of West Coast coverage because California love putting vulnerable children in the custody of insane mommies. So a lot of these stories we're covering is from out on the West Coast, and you know they sleeping right now. Come on, hit that like button.
focused on finding keys to the classrooms. At 11:44, the gunman fired again. Officers still did not move in.
Yep, and
At
please know,
12:03,
he wasn't firing at the cops at this point. He was firing at the kids inside of the classroom. It was bananas, a slaughter.
a child called 911 from inside the
Yeah, girl.
classroom, pleading for help.
Yep.
Please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies.
According to the after-action report, officers knew children were still alive.
Student was on call 911, 12. They're locked in there. Multiple casualties.
Video shows officers standing just outside the classroom with ballistic shields capable of stopping rifle rounds. The shooter continued firing. But it wasn't until 12:50, after 77 agonizing minutes, that a Border Patrol tactical team made entry and killed the gunman. Inside, chaos erupted. So many officers crowded the hallway.
The adults came. No incident command, none of that stuff. No incident command structure. None of that. Just chaos.
That paramedics struggled to reach the wounded. Outside, paramedics set up a triage area, trying to save whomever they could. Deputy Felix Rubio paced in desperation.
I want you to notice, though, I want you to notice that the feds are doing all the work. These are feds. This is BORTAC. These guys are trained in EMS and everything. They're basically SWAT guys for the feds. All of the local cops are standing around like freaking idiots. The ones who are doing all the work, the ones who killed the shooter, the ones who are triaging the children, is all the federal guys. All the federal guys. In fact, half of the feds, they were off duty. And they came in because they have the radios. You know, it's a different animal down there. Like, these guys are always working, even when they're not working. They had the radios in their car, and they heard what was happening. They came from off duty and arrived, and it's like, yo, we going in. Their lieutenant was like, what are you guys doing here? What's happening? Why nobody going in there? Oh, we got to do this. And we got Pete Arredondo was giving all types of excuses as to why he wasn't going in. Oh, we got to do this. We got to do that. Oh, you know, he's secure and barricaded. And it's like, he's not secure and barricaded. He's in there killing the children. The BORTAC guys was like, all right, enough is enough. Get out the way. We're going in. They went in, and within 2 seconds, they neutralized the shooter. Within 2 seconds. The guy had an AR-15 and hundreds of rounds, yes, but he was still just a regular guy with AR-15 and hundreds of rounds. He wasn't a Navy SEAL. He wasn't a BORTAC. He wasn't a cop. He was nothing but a stupid kid who couldn't find a date, who was an incel, who hated his life, hated his family, hated everything, and wanted to just cause maximum pain to society. Once those officers went through that door, he didn't know what to do. He knew what to do with innocent kids. He didn't know what to do when the big boys came in, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He died. They could have did that ages ago. They had shields. They had shields that could withstand AR-15 rounds. They had protection. They would not have died, just like the BORTAC guys didn't die. They were cowards. Let's keep going.
Deputy Felix Rubio paced in desperation, searching for his daughter, Lexi.
Man.
Let me work on that, okay? Please don't come home. Please. I promise you I'll have you an answer. I promise. Never let you down. I'll let you down.
Put your ass up.
Lexi was among the 19 children killed that day. Now, both Chief Pete
you promised you had an answer. Well, I guess that's the answer you had. Should have got out the way.
Arredondo and school resource officer Adrian Gonzales faced.
I'm a cop. I'm not stopping that cop from going where he got to go. That dude's not a brother. I'm not stopping that cop. That dude got tactical armor. He's a police officer. I'm not getting in his way. Wow.
Multiple felony charges of abandoning or endangering a child for their delayed response.
Yes.
Both men have defended their decisions, but prosecutors and critics say if they had followed their training, perhaps more lives.
Funny thing is, I think, first of all, this guy was the leader, and the leader always should take the most blame because he was the one who was ordering people. He could have ordered them to go into the classroom. But based off of the training, the person who's the most guilty, believe it or not, is not this clown here, but it's actually this guy, Adrian Gonzales. Because based off of the training, the first person to arrive on the scene has a duty to stop the threat. Adrian Gonzales is the first person to arrive on the scene, and he did not stop the threat. He was a coward who just stood around. He did nothing. So this guy was a failure of leadership and judgment. He's guilty. But this guy was supposed to actually go into the room and stop the threat. He didn't do that. Unbelievable. Let's keep going.
Saved. I'm Rebecca Lopez.
WFAA will.
Good stuff. Let's keep going. I got the trial over here on this screen over here. and it hasn't started yet. So we're going to keep going on memory lane so we could get the information, all right? We can bring you guys up to speed before the trial actually starts.
Well, jury selection gets underway tomorrow in the first criminal trial connected to the botched law enforcement response to the Uvalde school shooting. 21 people, 19 children, and 2 teachers were shot and killed when a gunman stormed Robb Elementary School in May 2022. A subsequent DOJ investigation listed, quote, cascading failures that day. One of the first school district police officers to arrive on the scene will stand trial first. Fox 4's Vanya Castillo is covering that story for us tonight and is live with what to expect. Hi, Vanya.
Hi, Casey. Yeah, we sat down with a criminal defense attorney to explain to us what we should be expecting, what we should be looking for, and how this impacts all of us.
Those parents want someone held accountable.
More than 3 years after 19 students and 2 teachers were killed at an Uvalde elementary school, someone will stand trial. Former Uvalde CISD police officer Adrian Gonzales was one of the first to arrive at the scene of the mass shooting. He's pled not guilty to 29 counts of abandoning and failing to protect children.
And the fact that there was a 77-minute delay.
Think about that, 77-minute delay, guys. 77-minute delay. People asking who's the school shooter. His name was Salvador Ramos. He was a former student there. I forgot what his deal was. What was his deal? Let's see here. Perpetrator. It's fuck. This dude makes me curse whenever I see him. He's such a punch me in the face. This kid was 18. He's from North Dakota. He was a resident of Uvalde from an early age and was a former student in Uvalde High School. He also attended Robb Elementary School for 4th grade in the same classroom where he was killed. He was frequently bullied at school. He claimed that Ramos had no friends. Furthermore, he did not have a criminal record or any documented mental health issues. However, he had searched the term sociopath and received an email about possible treatment. He had also previously posted violent threats online. School officials at Uvalde High School withdrew him from school on October 20th, 2021 due to his frequent absences. Ramos' social media acquaintances said he openly abused and killed animals such as cats and would live stream the abuse on Yobo. What the hell is Yubo? I gotta look that up. Other social media acquaintances said that he would also live stream himself on Yubo, threatening to kidnap and rape girls who use the app, as well as threatening to commit a school shooting. Why did nobody report this? God knows. Wow. Ramos' account was reported to Yobo, but no action was taken. So Yobo should be liable if they did absolutely nothing about these complaints. They could have at least suspended his account. Somebody said it's a Chinese YouTube. Okay, well, no disrespect to the Chinese, but they don't give a darn about what happens to us on social media. You look at TikTok in China, it's a place for you to post about winning science awards and science experiments. And then you come to TikTok in America and look at all the crap that they're planting in our people's heads. The funny thing is, not to go off the rails, but TikTok is so toxic and so evil. It literally tells people, well, whatever. I'm not going to get into that because it's going to be controversial, but whatever. The bottom line is, I get it. That makes sense to me. All right, let's keep going. Ramos' account was reported to Yobo. Nothing happened. Up until a month before the shooting, Ramos worked at a local Wendy's and had been employed there for at least a year. According to the store's night manager, he went out of his way to keep to himself. One of his coworkers said he was occasionally rude to his female coworkers, so he was an incel, to whom he sent inappropriate text messages and would intimidate coworkers at his job by asking them, "Do you know who I am?" No. Were they supposed to? Ramos' coworkers referred to him by names, including school shooter, because he had a long hair and frequently wore black clothing. A year before the shooting, Ramos started posting pictures to his Instagram account of semi-automatic rifles that were on his wish list. According to a friend of his, he would often drive around at night with another friend, shooting at strangers with a BB gun. Whoever that friend is needs to go to jail, and egging cars. According to a man who was in a relationship with Ramos's mother, Ramos moved out of his mother's house and into his grandparents' house 2 months before the shooting, after an argument broke out between him and his mother over Ramos turning off the Wi-Fi. People close to Ramos' family describe his mother as a drug user, makes sense, and said he frequently argued with her. 2 months prior, she should go to jail too. Her negligence resulted in this guy becoming a total weirdo. She's a drug addict. Take her ass to jail too. Listen, if we're going to do scorched earth and we charging everybody, then, charge everybody, right? Come on. We charging the cops for their response while we can't charge the mother for her raising him. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. All right, let's keep going. According to his father, Ramos had a girlfriend who lived in San Antonio. Charge her for dating him. What's wrong with her? She need therapy and she need to go to jail. Let's keep going. On May 14th, Ramos sent a private Instagram message reading, 10 more days. A person responded, "Are you going to shoot up a school or something?" He replied, "No. Stop asking dumb questions. You'll see." Oh, gosh. Let's keep going. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety in September 2021, Ramos asked his older sister to buy him a gun, but she refused. Good. On May 17, 2022, a day after his 18th birthday, he legally purchased a Smith & Wesson semi-automatic rifle from a local gun store. He then purchased another rifle 3 days later. Investigators later found his gun had a Hellfire trigger device, which decreases the time required for the trigger to reset, resulting in possible rate of fire, increasing the possible rate of fire. So basically, he turned a semi-automatic rifle into an automatic rifle because the trigger pull was so short. You could just go like this. It's crazy. Unbelievable. All right. Ramos sent an Instagram message to an acquaintance he met through Yubo, which showed the receipt for an AR-15 rifle purchased from Georgia based on online retailer Daniel Defense 8 days before the shooting. Posted a picture of 2 rifles on his Instagram account 3 days before the shooting. Ahead of the shooting, Ramos had purchased 1,657 total rounds of ammunition. He spent a boatload of money. NATO rounds are not cheap. He spent like over $1,000 on bullets. Ammunition purchased on May 18, 2022. A total of 315 rounds were found inside the school, consisting of 142 spent cartridges and 173 live rounds. Additionally, a total of 922 rounds were found on school property outside the building, consisting of 22 spent cartridges, 900 live rounds. Overall, Ramos fired 164 rounds during the shooting. It's like a war zone, basically. Police and Border Patrol officers fired a combined total of 35 rounds during the shooting, 8 in the hallway and 27 in the classroom where Ramos was killed. And that's what we're waiting on trial for. That's who Ramos was. The incel school shooter. Let's keep going.
And engaging with that shooter, they want police officers held accountable. This officer is the only one that had that training probably and was one of the first to arrive.
Of the more than 300 local, state, and federal officers who responded to Robb Elementary, only Gonzales and former Uvalde School's police chief Pete Arredondo faced charges. Prosecutors say Gonzales ignored his training and failed to act. His defense insists he was focused on helping other children escape.
This is a very unique case because I think this is maybe the second time an officer's been tried under this theory of being held criminally responsible for not acting, for an omission rather than an act that he's done.
Monday, jury selection begins in Gonzales' trial. Because of the scale of the tragedy and the attention it's received, the trial was moved from Uvalde to a court in Corpus Christi.
Too many people, small county, were touched by that. So moving the trial is significant in that the officer has a chance of a more fair jury pool, and there won't be as much pressure on the jury there as there would be if it took place where the shooting actually happened.
Attorneys will choose from an unusually large pool, 450 potential jurors.
Shows exactly how they're expecting a lot of people to be disqualified or to say they formed an opinion.
All right, so they already got their jury, and I was wrong. I said 14. It's 19 students and 2 teachers. 21 people. 19 students, 2 teachers, 21 people. So let's get out of this one because they have already picked their jury. Let's get you some more news.
Idly for 77 minutes as a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, almost 4 years ago. Now, today, jury selection is underway in a trial to decide whether Adrian Gonzales, a former school police officer, should be held criminally responsible for failing to engage the Uvalde shooter despite having the time to do so and also being trained to handle active shooters.
Correct. Now, to answer the question, the grandmother was injured. She didn't die. Grandmother was injured. It had 18 people who were injured. 19 people, 19 students, 21 people killed. All right. Students, teachers, 21 people killed, 18 injured, including 14 children, 1 teacher, and the grandmother, and 2 police officers. Guys, hit that like button for me, please. Support the channel. Hit the like button.
The judge telling jurors he plans to seat the jury by the end of the day, and the trial should start in 2 weeks, or take 2 weeks. Our Peter Haralambous is just outside court there in Uvalde. So, Peter, let's talk about jury selection. How's it going so far?
Yeah, we're really seeing the challenge of seating a jury in such a sensitive trial about one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history. We are seeing 450 Texans showing up for jury duty today. They're trying to whittle that down to by the end of the day to just 12 jurors. We're 200 miles away from Uvalde at this point, in part because of the concern that it would be impossible, basically, to find a fair jury in a place where this crime took place. So this trial is taking place in Corpus Christi, and despite being so far away, we're still seeing the challenge of finding a jury that was not aware or is able to fairly look at this case.
So it's been almost 4 years now since that tragic day in Uvalde, but we have been talking about Gonzales and his lack of action from the very beginning, Peter.
That's exactly right. And it's been a long time coming for the community of Uvalde, for the families of the victims. They've seen multiple investigations in the nearly 4 years since the shooting itself. And all of that culminated last year when we saw the decision to charge 2 police officers, including Adrian Gonzales, the officers who's standing trial this week. It's going to be the first criminal trial resulting from the delayed police response. Opening statements at this point are scheduled to begin in the morning.
All right. We'll be tracking it with you, Peter. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Okie dokie. We're still waiting for the trial to start. Now, this is in Texas. What time zone? It's like Texas is like in Central or something like that. Mountain time? I don't know. Because it's like it's 10 o'clock now. How far back is Texas? Let's see here. WFAA has to say about this.
But in that case, it was one child was injured. They introduced evidence that child's injured.
Man, I guess Law and Crime just messed up. They just dropped the ball. Looks like it's already started.
Because they said that was proof that the other child was in danger of being injured. So as each child is injured, another is also. I want to talk about the concept of adults and children for just a second. And we can all agree, I think it's human nature, I think the nature of child endangerment is that we give special attention because we understand that children are fragile, tender years, and for them to be hurt is disturbing to all of us. But are we to now rule that adults can be murdered and the results of that can go to a jury? Children don't get that same protection by a court in Texas. A child gets injured, but because it's so horrible, the very nature of what makes the defendant responsible for a horrible crime, we're not going to allow the jury to see the results of that. And that's exactly what the cases on photographs of autopsies and crime scenes is about. A defendant is responsible for the conduct that he causes. And in this case, it's the state's position that he was compelled to act upon hearing 60 shots into children, and it was the compelling nature of that and his failure to do that that makes this such a significant crime. We're not talking about one shot and one person. We're talking about 29 kids, 19 of which died. Many of the others are injured. Each one of those children have the right to have their injuries depicted in the absence of Adrian Gonzales acting in the face of that information.
Okay, do you want to address the relative probative value versus the prejudicial?
The probative value is, number one, we have alleged that the gunman entered room 111 and 112 and shot at one or more children in room 111 and 112.
But what's the distinction between discussing it and describing it versus showing the actual photographs?
Case law says if you can discuss it, you can show a photograph of it.
Well, true, but you still have to consider the prejudicial versus the probative. So what do these photographs...
Okay. So this is a hearing. They basically playing like some of the hearings that they had before. So Law and Crime didn't drop the ball. But when the actual trial starts, they'll switch from these hearings where they're basically going through their motions and stuff to the actual live coverage, the opening statements on the case, right? So this is good because at least we get to see some of the things they were discussing prior to the trial starting, the motions and the debates that they were having.
Lend to the jury in determining any disputed issue. Maybe pull that one over toward you a little bit, if you don't mind. Whoever's going to be speaking, maybe get a little closer. You might want to test it on. I assume.
It works good.
Judge, from the very beginning, we
Bill,
said...
you got to turn it on. You push that little button right there. There you go.
Should be a green light.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, we've tried to explain that the whole case of child endangerment puts people in a different situation. Adults are required to act differently when children are in danger. And it's because of the compelling nature of what bothers us about children. It's the whole reason we have child endangerment statutes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Final rebuttal, anything? Mr. Goss?
Yeah, Judge, it's just to point out that even Mr. Turner said that, in this, are we going to say in the state that adults can be murdered and we show their pictures, but children can't be murdered? If Salvador Ramos had not been shot in the eye and killed, shot by police officers at the time, and he was sitting in that chair, 100% all those pictures would come in because that is his conduct and that is what he did. This is not a murder case, and that's not what they're trying. Their indictment has limited it, and because we're asking you to take those things into account, because a person who has actually done the things and made the choices of where to shoot the children, where to aim the gun,
I see what they're doing.
What kind of gruesome injuries to inflict upon those child. Regardless of what the state is alleging, they cannot say that Mr. Gonzales was like that he made those choices because nobody.
Right. So what they're arguing right now, I was able to pick up on it real quick. The state wants to show the jury all the pictures of the victims, and the defense is saying like, listen, this is not a murder case. That's going to be prejudicial to our client for the jury to see all these victims. We're here because you're saying that the officer didn't take proper action. We're not here because the officer actually ended those kids. But, somebody made a, comment, I think it was Rachel and a few other, and Scrappy made some interesting comments. It's almost like these officers did cause these deaths because they were arresting the parents, detaining the parents, handcuffing them. Some of the parents were law enforcement officers. They were stopping law enforcement officers with tack vests on from going in there because those officers were willing to give their life for their children. They stopped them. They stopped everybody who wanted to go into the classroom and stop the killing. And anybody who didn't want to go into the classroom was allowed to stand outside talking and cracking jokes. Because when you watch the extended footage, there are times when these guys are cracking jokes and just being silly out there. It's not even like they were out there all tense all day. Like they were like lounging around, cracking jokes, being silly. Like there weren't dozens and dozens and dozens of kids dying inside of the classroom. So it almost is, I think, it's understandable that the prosecutor would want to show those pictures because you did that. Yeah, it's the killer is the one who decided to go in the classroom and do all those horrible things, but you let him stay there. You're no different. You aided and abetted him because you gave him his killing fields. You gave him his killing fields. So, yeah, show the pictures.
Nobody else made those choices, but the shooter. And then, as the court's saying, we are willing to stipulate, but additionally, every person who testifies will be able to testify as to the injuries, the death. That's the only probative value that it has, and the only other thing that it can do. Only other thing that it can do is inflame the passions of the jury, and as we said, it would, and as the court has seen in the evidence, it's one of the most gruesome and horrific things. And not only just if you just took each child, but in total, like all the children, the 19, especially in the autopsies, if you take and then multiple pictures of all the children, and that adds up as well. And so, of course, you know, what the state would say to that is, I'm sure, is that, well, we can't leave a child out, so we need 3 pictures for 19 children, which then becomes this cascade of horror. And are we able to be sure that his due process rights won't be violated? Are we able to be sure that in that cascade of horror that that's not going to irrationally affect the jurors' minds and make them so angry at the defendant that they don't make their decision based on the law and the facts?
All right, for the purposes of the opening statement, I'm going to deny the motion in limine. I'm going to find that my review of the photographs, that the probative does outweigh the prejudicial. However, I am not admitting the photographs at this time. Having gone through them, there are several that I may sustain an objection to, and they will not go to the jury. But for purposes of the opening statement, I am denying the motion in limine. But I'm reserving my right to exclude many of these photographs at the appropriate time.
All right. He split the baby. He said some could come in, some can't.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure the prosecutor probably tried to slip in some photos of the children in a state of unaliving. And so the judge is like, listen, you want to show regular photos? All right, I'm okay with that. But if you want to show these children unalive, that's definitely going to be prejudicial. So he split the baby, basically.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, how many do we have on jurors? We have more? Okay, we have
It wasn't the sole thing of our motion, but I know.
So the jury as to its admissibility.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any other matters before we bring the jury in for instruction?
We have a few minutes just to go to the restroom.
And I do have one more issue that was part of the motion. And this is something that we typically talk about. It's a motion we typically do in that victims are, the word victim, these children are clearly victims. And of course, everybody at this table and everybody on the defense knows that every child who was hurt, every child, the children who were not hurt, the children who were in different rooms are all victims. Every teacher there, every adult there, victims. However, what the nature of this case is to determine if they are Adrian Gonzales's victims. And so we would ask that the state be limited to calling them the complainants or the victims of Salvador Ramos, unless and until at such time as he is convicted. But as I said, there is no dispute that they are, and I'm not trying to dispute it, but we are disputing that they are victims of my client and our client. We are saying that they are definitely victims, but of somebody else. And so we have done that. We have put those in and put those types of motions in before because we do believe that it could have a tendency to affect the jury by them being referred to in that way before he's been convicted or before it's been established that they are his victims, if that makes sense to the court.
All right, Mr. Turner.
Your Honor, Sire versus State, CYR, is the proposition that 2 people can be responsible for a child being victimized, the person who does the injury and the person who has the duty to prevent the injury. Both can be responsible for victimizing the child. So his whole concept that these victims are not victims of Adrian Gonzales is completely contrary to what the law is.
Well, no, the law is he's presumed innocent unless he's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt to all the elements. All I'm saying is that and that has not been established, obviously. So, and I agree that you can have two people can cause an injury, but they have not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Adrian Gonzales's omissions are responsible for any of the injuries of the children. And so I want to make clear, I am not disrespecting them, that I agree that they are victims, but they are victims of Salvador Ramos. That's been 100% clearly established at this point.
How? There's no evidence on that either, Your Honor.
Well, I think they'll stipulate to it. I think they'll stipulate that they are victims of Salvador Ramos. I don't think the state is going to contest that at all, and we're obviously not contesting that either. But I think ultimately is that their whole point is what they want to do is say that they are victims of Adrian.
Hey guys, two things. Number one, some people saying, who is this? This is Adrian Gonzales. He is one of the first officers on scene. So that's why he's being charged. The chief was not the first on scene. The chief came in much later, but he was in charge and he did not properly manage the scene. And that's why he has his separate trial coming up. but this is the first guy on scene. And the reason why they charged him, he was one of like 2 or 3 people who was first on scene. But the reason why they charged him and not those 2 or 3 other, or those 1 or the 2 other people that were on scene is because he got first responder active shooter training. He was trained that his job was to go in and neutralize the threat, and he did not do that. So that's why they charged him, because he knew better, okay? And they charged Chief Arredondo because he took incident commander training, so he knew what his job duties were, his job responsibilities were. And in incident commander training, because I took incident commander training, and it's you have to do it for my department as a part of the promotional exam, and I took the promotional exam, so I had to study the incident commander training. All right, not special. Everybody in my department who wanted to take the sergeant's exam, they had to study incident commander training, right? And so in incident commander training, the first supervisor on scene is the incident commander until somebody else of high rank comes and relieves them. This guy is the chief of the school district police department, which means that even if another chief from a different agency came, he still would remain in power because this is his jurisdiction. And yet Arredondo said, when I said this guy, I wasn't meaning him, I was meaning Chief Arredondo. Arredondo said, well, I didn't know I was the one who was in charge, which is just bonk. How would you not know you're in charge when you took the training and you're the chief? Now, this guy is charged, as I told you, because he knew what to do, or at least he should have known what to do because he took the training. And it's on his record that he took that training and understood that training. He didn't. What he did was he was a coward. He started like doing crowd control and stuff like that. Instead of going and stopping the threat, he's doing crowd control. That's what he did. He did pretty much nothing. So he's on trial first because he's the one who could have stopped the threat, or at least died trying. He could have stopped the threat. He did not. All right, let's keep going.
Gonzales before they prove beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury that is
true.
true.
And I don't know. We know what he's being charged with. There's tons of child endanger charges. I think Scrappy put it up there, something like that. But I don't know how much time he's facing. I just Texas law. I tried to Google it. I couldn't figure out what the minimum is. And then even like, let's say if it's felony child abuse kind of charges, let's say they have like a 2 to 5 year, he could end up getting sentenced concurrently where he gets convicted of 29 counts and only does 5 years, or the judge could make it consecutive where he could get convicted of the 29 and he has to serve every sentence back to back, and that could end up being a life sentence. I don't know how they do business in Texas. I doubt that they would do that for a child abuse charge. So God knows, we'll figure it out soon.
And that is a fact. And so with that distinction, I would ask that the state refer to them as the complainants until and unless they are able to secure a conviction. And then, of course, if we went to a punishment phase to the court, they can, of course, that's just kind of how that works. As far as them proving it, and I know the court knows that. We're just trying to prevent any danger of unfair prejudice or the jury being influenced improperly to believe that before they've proven it that these children are victims of Adrian Gonzales.
Okay, well, I'm going to sustain the motion in limine to this effect. They can be referred to as victims because they clearly are victims, but they cannot be referred to as victims of the defendant until and if that is final argument where you have established that beyond a reasonable doubt and you wish to argue that to the jury. But they can be referred to as victims, just not specifically as his victims until that is proven, if it is. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Goss, I hesitate to ask, what else?
That was it. I mean, we had a kind of a boilerplate prior convictions, prior bad acts. I don't believe there are any. They haven't given us any 404B of any of that, and so I don't. It's just if they believe that there's some prior bad act of our client, we just ask they approach first, and I think they would agree to do that.
Well, that'll be granted approach if that arises.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so before the jury comes in, ladies and gentlemen, spectators, media, I know the media has agreed to some fairly strict rules, and we have a written decorum for the media. I've had several hearings in Uvalde, and I've had spectators family members, victims in the courtroom, and they have behaved very well.
All right, so he's telling the rules of the court. I'm going to hit the live button so we can fast forward.
Over and over, and the jurors are going to...
The jurors aren't going to make those distinctions.
Yeah,
these are late
they're going to,
people.
right, they're going to infer, yeah, they're Adrian Gonzales' victims. So I think that's a win for the prosecution. But yeah, this is very kind of typical.
And so we've seen this. We're expecting opening statements at 9:30. Okay, let me recap for folks who've joined us a little late. So obviously the jury has been picked. We're waiting on the jury to come in. They had started off with some pretrial hearings. There's been discussion about whether to allow in autopsy photos. The judge ruled against the defense of what's called a motion in limine. He didn't say, I won't allow them, but he essentially said at some point when it comes up, there will probably be some of these that I will not allow in. In fact, he said maybe quite a few.
Yeah.
And then there was this discussion of whether or not you could refer to the children who died as victims. And we talked a little bit about why the defense would not have wanted that terminology used. One thing that I want to talk about while we're waiting on opening statements is just the historic nature of this trial. Scott Peterson was the officer in the Parkland case, the 2018 school shooting.
All right, real quick. People are saying in the chat, this guy, didn't take his job seriously. He shouldn't have been a cop. This is a problem with these type of professions. There's a lot of times that people will take these jobs out of desperation, because these jobs are accessible. They're not easy, but they're accessible. You could get in. If you want to be a cop and you are in good physical condition, at least to start out your career, and you have no serious criminal record, and you could take a test and you have patience, you could pretty much get on almost any force. There's some you probably won't get on because it's so competitive that maybe they won't reach you. But you could pretty much get on any major school force because I'm thinking about the school thing, but police force in the nation. If you have minimal to no criminal record, when I say minimal, maybe you got a fight when you was a little kid, maybe you got a speeding ticket. That stuff is not going to stop you from being a cop. All right. And you're in good physical condition and you could take a test and you can get an 85 and up on a civil service test. And a lot of people will take these jobs because they have good benefits and they have decent pay for the areas that people live in. And it's like, they don't really have a passion for it. They don't have a passion for it. And they do it because, you know what? I need to do something. And they don't understand that this comes with responsibility. There might be a point that you're going to be tested. There might be a point where, you might have went your whole career just skeeting along the edges, man, just getting by. But that moment might come where you have to prove your mettle. And that's when you find out who a person really is. These guys had one job to do, and that was to save those children. And they chose to save themselves. Now listen, have I ever been in a mass shooting before? No. If I told you that, I'd be a liar. But have I been in situations where I had to go into some hairy situations where I'm like, yo, I could get shot? Yes. Yes. It was almost like at least 2 times a month when I was on patrol that I was in a situation where I had to pull my gun out and I felt like my life was on the line. I told you guys some of those stories. Some of those stories I can't tell you. I've seen some stuff. And I'm not Superman. I think about my family. But I also say, if you're going to take the taxpayers' money, you have to be willing to sacrifice yourself for 80-year-old, even though you're probably a quarter of their age. That's what you signed up for. To value that 80-year-old's life over your life. And that is why this man must be charged, because nobody forced him to take that job. You too old? Should retire. Or not take the job at all. I think those places don't even have age requirements. So you got dudes that have second careers. I always wanted to be a cop. They're like 60 years old and they go take the test. And they could just do the push-ups, do the run, and now they're 60 years old. But you know what? Your brain, your body may be in great shape, but your brain is not 20 years old. I see it right now as I'm getting older. I'm 42, man. When I was half my age, I'll fight anybody. Now I'm more tactical. I'm like, oh man, look at this big dope. Still want to fight. Now I think it's a good thing because I'm still not afraid to kick your. Where's my beeper? I'm not afraid to kick your. You guys know I don't curse. I just make the noise like I'm cursing. But because I'm getting older, because, you know, my body takes longer to heal. Like it started happening right before I got promoted to detective, man. I get in fights and my knees would, you know, from the ground game, whereas my knees would bounce back after like a couple of hours, it was taking a week for my knees to get better. I punch guys, my hand feel like it's broken. I go to the doctor, I get x-rays and all that stuff. They're like, yo, nothing's broken. You just got bad bruises. Whereas before, nothing's wrong with my hands. My body started breaking down, man, because I'm getting old. So now it's like, hey, buddy, come on, man. Do we really have to fight? Come on. Let's talk about this. Now, I'm not in the same situations I was in when I was on patrol, but I still have to go get my own perps. And sometimes they get a little froggy and I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. You're going to get out soon. That's the beauty of working in New York. You can honestly tell a perp, don't worry about it. You're going to get bail. It's okay. This is New York. Don't fight. So far, it's worked because they're like, they forget. They're like, no, I got to fight or fight. You know, I'm about to get arrested. I got to get out of here. Let me fight this cop. Let me fight this detective. Get out of here. But when I remind them this is New York, they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'll be out soon. Okay. It's no need to fight. When I was younger, I wouldn't care. But nah, bro, you coming? Oh, you flexing? Oh, not no more, man. This guy should have never been a cop. He thought I'm a school cop in an elementary school. Nothing's going to happen. That's what he thought. He thought he could get that Uvalde tax money and ride off into the sunset on his Texas horse. What's the name of the dude with the horse? What's that guy named the singer? He made the cowboy, the black kid made the cowboy song. Come on, y'all gotta hurry up. You're gonna mess up my joke. Come on, man. Whatever. He thought he was gonna ride off with that dude on the horse. Some dudes could go their whole career and that's their destiny. That wasn't your destiny, bro. You had one job. One job. You know what? If they would have just started shooting in that damn room, that would have saved lives. Believe it or not. Yeah, what's the Old Town Road guy? I forgot it. Now I want to know his name. Whatever. If they would have just started shooting in that room, they'd have saved lives because the shooter would have been more preoccupied trying to shoot back at the cops than shooting those kids. They didn't even do that. They went to the door. He shot twice. He grazed two cops. They ran away. Then they stood around, talking, cracking jokes, looking for keys, and the babies died. Little Nas X, you guys failed me, by the way. I asked you for the name and nobody told me. Somebody told me the song, but nobody told me the name. You failed me. I'll never forget that. I hold grudges. And then the adults came, and that's finally when the shooter died. Shame. Shame.
Contained in law books, dictionaries, public or private records, or elsewhere, which is not admitted into evidence. I am further instructing you specifically that you are not to secure or attempt to secure any information of any type relating to this case from the...
All right, so just to be clear, my recollection of the jokes there, it wasn't jokes like they're having comedy night out. It was like that nervous kind of jokey banter kind of stuff, which is still inappropriate when you have a mass shooter inside of a classroom. Still inappropriate when you have a mass shooter in the classroom. So it wasn't like they were sitting out there doing Dave Chappelle jokes all day, but they were joking and laughing and doing the nervous jokes that people do while standing around idle as the babies died. People want the wig. The wig will come on when court actually starts. We've been waiting for court for quite a while. I don't know what the hell is going on down there in Texas. In New York, we start court on time. I mean, within reason, within 30 minutes, but you start court on time. Like they court, look what time it is. Where's the courtroom? All right, let's keep going. What's wrong with them? Got us waiting.
Therefore, to follow carefully all of these instructions which I have given you, as well as any others that come up during the course of the trial, which you may later receive. You may keep these instructions and review them as you wish. A violation of these instructions should be reported to me immediately. Respectfully submitted, Sid Harrell, presiding judge. With that, ladies and gentlemen, you were impaneled and sworn yesterday. At this time, both sides have an opportunity to make what is known as an opening statement. What the lawyers say in the opening statement is not to be construed as evidence in the case, but they do have the right to summarize what they believe the evidence will show in the case. The state has the opportunity to go first. The defense may either immediately follow them or reserve their opening statement to the opening of their own case. So I'll ask the state to address you at this time. Did y'all have the indictment already? Yeah. Okay, Ryan, do you have it? The amendment? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to read the indictment, but with certain qualifications that I was going to address with you, and then we'll do the opening statements. There's 29 counts, as we discussed yesterday when we did the voir dire. Both sides have agreed to not read the entire indictment. They are going to read the indictment. Selected counts, they are identical. They'll describe that to you. And then at the conclusion of the reading of the indictment, I will have the defendant enter his plea as to the entire indictment, each and every count therein. But once again, they're not going to read each and every one to you at this time. So you may proceed. Would you stand, please, for the reading of the indictment?
I'm going to read the first two counts of the indictment.
All right, so this is
The state of Texas.
this is live. This is the trial right here. Long Crime screwed theirs up. So we're going to X that out. This is the trial right now.
By the authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury for the county of Uvalde, the state of Texas, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, charged, and organized as such at the January term of 2024 of the Judicial District Court for said county and said state, upon their oaths, present in to said court at said term that Adrian Gonzales, hereinafter styled the defendant, on or about the 24th day of May 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county and state aforesaid, as a peace officer for the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District by omission, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence, placed Jose Manuel Flores Jr., a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, or mental impairment by engaging in one or more than one of the following omissions. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness one, and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzales failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to attempt to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to otherwise act in a way to impede the shooter until after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School and shot at a child or children in rooms 111 and 112. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness one and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzales failed to follow his active shooter training to respond to gunfire by advancing toward the gunfire until after the active shooter shot at one or more than one child or children in rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School. And the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty under the provisions of Article 6.06 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure to prevent an offense against a person about to be committed in his presence and use as much force as necessary to prevent the commission of the offense and no greater. and under the provisions of Article 6.05 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty, after being informed in any manner that a threat had been made by one person to do some injury to another person, to prevent the threatened injury if within his power, and the defendant, as a police officer of the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, had a duty under Section 37.081 of the Texas Education Code to protect the safety and welfare of people in his jurisdiction, and the said defendant did not voluntarily deliver the child named above to a designated emergency infant care provider under Section 262.302 of the Texas Family Code. Count 2. And it is further presented that Adrian Gonzales hereinafter styled the defendant on or about the 24th day of May 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county and state aforesaid, as a peace officer for the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, by omission, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence, place Uzziah Sergio Garcia, a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily death, physical impairment, or mental impairment by engaging in one or more of the following omissions. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1, and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzales failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to attempt to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to otherwise act in a way to impede the shooter until after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School and shot at a child or children in rooms 111 and 112. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1, and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzales failed to follow his active shooter training to respond to gunfire by advancing toward the gunfire until after the active shooter shot at one or more than one child or children in rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School. And the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty under the provisions of Article 6.06 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure to prevent an offense against a person about to be committed in his presence, and use as much force as necessary
Amen.
to prevent the commission of the offense, and no greater. And
I'm gonna pause it for 2 seconds just to say this one thing, because people are saying something in a chat that is very human, but it doesn't apply to police officers. Somebody said, well, until you're in a situation like that, you don't know whether you're going to fight or you run. A police officer has a duty. Everybody in this chat who's not a law enforcement officer, you don't have a duty. You could freeze, you could be fearful, you could run, you could hide. Your duty is to your own survival. Morality is a different thing. If you want to put morality into it, that, well, you have a moral duty to try and help these kids or whatever, put those kids' lives before you, that's a different conversation. But a police officer has a duty. He had a duty to stop that shooter, and he failed. Let's keep going.
And under the provisions of Article 6.05 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty, after being informed in any manner that a threat had been made by one person, to do some injury to another person to prevent the threatened injury if within his power. And the defendant, as a police officer of the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, had a duty under Section 37.081 of the Texas Education Code to protect the safety and welfare of people in his jurisdiction. And the said defendant did not voluntarily deliver the child named above to a designated emergency care provider under Section 262.302. Count 3 is for the child of Javier Lopez. Count 4 is for the child Jace Carmela Luevano. Count 5 is for the child Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez. Count 6 is for the child Alexandria Anaya Rubio. Count 7 is for the child Layla Marie Salazar. Count 8 is for the child Eliana Torres. Count 9 is for the child Rogelio Fernandez Torres. Count 10 is for the child Nevaeh Alyssa Bravo. Count 10 is for the child Jacqueline Jalen Caceres.
God rest their souls.
Count 12 is for the child McKenna Lee Elrod. Count 13 is for the child Liana Garcia. Count 14 is for the child Tess Marie Mata. Count 15 is for the child Miranda Gail Mathis. Count 16 is for the child Alethea Haven Ramirez. Count 17 is for the child Maeta Yulena Rodriguez. Count 17 is for the child Jayla Nicole Seguero. Count 19 is for the child Amarie Jo Garza. Count 20 is for the child Noah Oscar Arona. Count 21 is for the child Chloe Merlinda Torres. Count 22 is for the child Jordan Demetrio Olivares. Count 23 is for the child Jaden Ganisalas. Count 24 is for the child Samuel Salinas. Count 25 is for the child Kendall Faith Olivares. Count 26 is for the child Mia Seville. Count 27 is for the child Gilberto Mata. Count 28 is for the child AJ Martinez. And count 29 is for the child Maya Zamora.
All right. Once again, both sides have agreed to allow the defendant to enter the plea as to all 29 counts, but not read all 29 counts. So ladies and gentlemen of the jury, all 29 counts will be set out and will be in the final charge of the jury. But at this time, in regard to the entire indictment, sir, how would you like to plead, guilty or not guilty? All right, thank you. You can be seated. The court will receive your plea in the causes. And again, typically, ladies and gentlemen, I read the indictment immediately after you're impaneled and sworn, but because of the lateness of the hour last evening, we deferred it to today. So at this time, I'd ask the state to approach, and you may make your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court.
All right, opening statements. Let's do it.
The road was Hillcrest Funeral Home, and a man named Gilbert Lamons was working at the funeral home. It was about 11:30 when a truck crashed through a rail and into a ditch. So he did what any of us would do. He went to check on the driver.
I remember that.
Okay.
He shot at that dude. Watch.
He and Cody Brasino left the funeral home, walked across the street, got close to the ditch when they were met with a man who exited the truck but got out with a rifle, a high-powered rifle. So as you might expect, they turned and ran. Shots were fired. So they called the police. They called the police for help. The gunman jumped over the fence, deliberate pace, across the schoolyard to the southwest corner building, and opened fire. Stephanie Hale was in the playground on the south end of the school. She heard the fire. And it didn't make her incapable of action. She protected the kids. She got them to safety. They went into the classrooms. They did as they'd been trained. They hid in the dark and waited for help from the police. The teachers and the kids armed themselves with scissors to confront a gunman. To confront a gunman. Melody Flores was also out there that day. She heard the shots fired. She had a concern for the kids. She was capable of action. She ran to where the gunfire was sounded. And there were kids at the south end. They were about to go to recess. They were told, get back in, get back in, get back in. And she doesn't leave her post until they get back in the west wing. But she stays there so long that when that happens and the last kid enters, she's face to face with the gunman.
Wow. That's crazy.
And he fires on her and she turns to run. And when she turns to run, she trips and she falls.
Wow.
And when she gets up, Adrian Gonzales, the police officer, is there.
Wow.
And she says, he's over there.
Wow.
She urges him to go get him.
I didn't even know this.
Adrian Gonzales says, where? Over there. He's wearing black. He's in the teacher's parking lot.
Oh my God. I didn't even know this.
As shots are ringing out. This is not confusion. He gets on the radio and says, shots are fired. He's wearing black. He's in the parking lot.
Go to jail.
He knows where he is. But Adrian Gonzales remains.
Wow. I didn't even know
The
this.
south side of the school.
I did not even know
The
this.
gunman makes his way up the west side of the west building where the fourth graders are. He fires shots into a classroom full of children at 102. Adrian Gonzales remains. He moves down to classroom 104, fires shots into the classroom of 104. Adrian Gonzales remains.
Wow.
He moved halfway down the wing, fires more shots, this time not into the building because there's no defect in the building. It's not going into the windows, it's not going into the bricks. It's also at the same time when forces are coming, other police officers are starting to arrive.
If he'd have pinned this dude down in the parking lot, the police would have been able to stop
He then
him.
hurries to the west door and enters. It's been a minute.
You coward.
And there's a break in the shooting. And Adrian Gonzales remains.
Wow, you coward.
That gunman then walks down the hallway, gets to room 111 and 112, the entryway, and fires in the neighborhood of 20 shots in the hallway. And Adrian Gonzales remains. The children in 111 and 112 are done as they're trained. In the dark, lights off, be quiet, hide, and wait for Adrian Gonzales.
Wow.
And the gunshots get near,
He should die in prison.
and the slaughter begins. One of the shots penetrates the window going out of room 111. Melody Flores is still urging Adrian Gonzales to go in.
Wow.
She sees the shot come through the window. Adrian Gonzales tells the police he sees the shot go through the window. Adrian Gonzales gets on the radio and says, guys, I think he's made it in the building.
Oh my God.
This isn't confusion. Adrian Gonzales remains. For the next minute and a half, about 60 shots go into children. And Adrian Gonzales remains. 3.5 minutes into this ordeal, while Adrian Gonzales is still standing out there, his boss shows up. Pete Arredondo, along with Sergeant Coronado.
Wow.
They're running up adjacent to another building, get about the same distance Adrian Gonzales is from the gunshots, and they hear the shots going off. And Coronado yells, what you would expect a police officer to yell. Shots fired, get in the building. 3.5 minutes later. So Adrian Gonzales joins the other two officers and Donald Page, who's just arrived, and they go into the building.
Oh my gosh.
He enters the building 3 minutes and 45 seconds after he got there. And after the damage is done.
Yes.
So we ask ourselves, was this his first day on the job?
How much time he had on the job? Tell me.
Was he a rookie? Adrian Gonzales was a veteran of 10 years. He'd been at the Uvalde Police Department for 10 years. He'd been at the school district for a year. He had thousands of hours of training. He went to compel training, which was active shooter training, which is pretty straightforward. When you hear gunshots, you go to the gunfire.
Yes.
But it wasn't just active shooter training. They didn't just sit in a classroom, they practiced. They practiced what do you do if it's in an open area, like this open area. And they trained Adrian Gonzales how to do his job safely. And that is, you look for concealment and cover.
That's right.
Concealment means the gunman can't see you. It
That's
may not
correct.
protect you if he shoots, but he can't see you.
Don't hug that cover.
Cover means you're protected.
Yes.
The corner of a building means you're protected.
That's correct.
We're not asking Adrian Gonzales to commit suicide.
Nope.
He has been trained to go to the corner of a building
And start engaging
and
that
distract, delay, and impede the gunman while help is arriving.
Yep.
But Adrian Gonzales does nothing more than mic his microphone and tell other officers what's going on.
That's right. What a coward. What a coward. And Scrappy makes it.
So why are we here?
He was in charge. He was incident commander until the chief came.
When a child is in danger and calls 911, we have the right to expect a response.
That's right. Until the chief came, he was the incident commander. That's how incident commander works.
If I may have a moment to rewrite so well, I got a piece on.
That was a good opening statement. Clear, concise, and to the point. He didn't need to draw it out. We didn't need to be there for 3 hours. Clear and concise and through and to the point. How do you defend that? I want to hear what his defense attorney has to say. How do you defend clear and concise cowardice? This man should be thrown under the jail. I don't think he should ever see the light of day again. I've never heard a better opening statement in my entire life. He just gave them exactly what happened. How do you defend that?
Counsel. Members of the jury.
That's correct. First on scene has a duty to act, and you're also the incident commander when you're first on scene. You go in and you neutralize that threat.
Who hurt those children is dead.
Uh-huh. Blame it on the shooter, uh-huh.
And I mean, it's emotional. I could understand why Bill, when he talked to you, I could understand why he had emotion. I can't talk to you without it either. I think you heard me say it yesterday. This is one of the worst things ever happened in our country. There's only been a few like this. This many, this young.
Yeah.
Innocent. It's awful. But Adrian Gonzales did the best he could with what he knew at the time.
Oh, okay.
Adrian Gonzales, the prosecution got up here in the opening statement, and you're going to see, and Nico, my partner, he's going to come up here and he's going to go through the times after I talk to you. But you're going to see that the prosecutor has tried to condense time at some points and then tried to stretch it out. But one of the things that you didn't hear in his opening was any preciseness of the times. We heard about a minute. That's not what we're going to do in this trial. We're going to talk about what Adrian knew, what was happening second by second, so that you can understand that we're right. We know that Adrian never was able to confront the gunman.
Yeah.
but the prosecution's going to agree, and the evidence is going to prove throughout the trial, Adrian never saw it.
Well, his legs was broken.
The prosecution says knowing the general location. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And one of the things that you heard the prosecution say, you heard him say that Adrian said he's over there in the parking lot. He's over there in the teacher's parking lot on the west side of the building.
That's where he's supposed
to
go.
What he didn't tell you is that when Adrian said that, and Nick is going to talk about it, when he said that, this is the parking lot on the west side of the building. When Adrian calls that out, he's over here, all the way on the other side of this building.
So, you're supposed to go.
And as far as being here, calling it out, the shooter had already entered the building.
It doesn't matter. You're supposed to try.
He's on the west side of the building in the teacher's parking lot. He does not know. Adrian does not know where he is. But I want to talk about it using this map so that you can get an idea of what happened. First, the issue was that, The issue was that.
I'm sorry, my assistant's trying to get in touch with me.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Where we start, and just so that everybody can understand, and oftentimes in these kind of cases we don't use the names.
It doesn't seem like this defense attorney's prepared for this.
A lot of times why they do this. Right?
Opening statement.
He's a monster.
He's not doing a good job.
He did to these children. What you're going to see that he did to these children is horrifying. It's disgusting. It's terrible. But he didn't start with the kids. The first thing he did before he got to Robb Elementary was he shot his grandmother in the face at his home. So she gets shot in the face. He gets in a vehicle. Her house is probably a couple of blocks. So if you can imagine the map extending out here, he gets in a car. He doesn't know how to drive. He gets in a car with that firearm. He comes up Grove Street here, and you're going to see that this right here it's like a concrete culvert. It's got a railing here, and obviously somebody normally would make that turn. This dead ends into this culvert. After shooting his grandmother in the face, he comes down here, blows through this railing, and his car ends up in the concrete culvert.
I think I have a better defense.
Now, this is going to be important.
We'll talk about it.
Because if you listen to the prosecution, what the prosecution is wanting, I suppose, and expecting and trying to show you or argue in this trial, is that everybody has to have perfect understanding of what's happening. But you're going to see that this is the first thing that contributes to confusion. You're going to hear that there has never been a school shooting in the United States of America that begins with somebody wrecking into a culvert like that. Now, what does this tell a police officer? And you'll hear what the evidence is going to show. This tells a police officer somebody has maybe shot an adult, right? Maybe committed some other crime, maybe committed a robbery, maybe trying to get away, or maybe is drunk, right? And doesn't navigate the turn, or maybe was texting. Some other thing is happening. This is not how a school shooting starts. It just happens to be next to a school, and this is important. So the shooter wrecks, and as the prosecution says, there's a fence right here. He climbs the fence. This is the funeral home he was talking about. People come out of this funeral home because they see this wreck, and he fires shots. Now, where's Adrian at this time? Just so you understand, this is Robb Elementary. These are all the buildings in Robb Elementary. Robb Elementary does not have an officer that's there all the time. So he is not the officer for Robb Elementary. He's not the police officer that's there. He is not at that school. He is actually at a park because he typically works at the high school in Uvalde, and he's at the park with a bunch of the students who they're having there's a different kind of celebration. As the prosecutor said, this is towards the end of the year. Students are.
He's going to try and talk circles around the jury because he doesn't have a defense.
In elementary and even high school.
Well, when we get a break, I'm going to give you the defense that this gentleman should have.
Award ceremonies, talking to parents, all those other things, watching movies in the classroom, things like that. Adrian is away from here at this park, but he hears the call. He's not the officer actually assigned to even take this call. The call comes out as an accident. A car has has crashed into this culvert. He's not the officer assigned. There's a different officer, you'll see, that that actually comes up here later on, and the person assigned to the call doesn't ever do any of the things that you're going to see that Adrian did. But he gets a call to the crash, and he says, okay, I'll go out and see what's up, see what's going on. You'll hear a particular thing about Uvalde. Uvalde has a population of people who are undocumented. You will hear that 50 times in a 2-month period is typical for there to be some sort of accident or bailout involving people who are undocumented. It's one of those things that's particular to Uvalde and particular to the region. It's one of those things that officers deal with all the time, and it's one of the things schools deal with all the time. And this is important because when that crash happens, the school does not go into lockdown. Why doesn't the school go into lockdown? Because nobody is expecting that this is a school shooting. They're expecting that this is a drunk. This is somebody getting away from something else. Now, why is that important? Even when he's advancing or leaving his car, what they can see and what they can tell at the time is not telling anybody that he is trying to get into this school to hurt any children in this school. He is trying to get away from the scene of this crash. And that's one of the themes that throughout is that what's happening with this particular situation is confusing the police about what actually the intentions are of this person. They start setting up perimeters that you'll see later because they're thinking he's trying to just get away from them. Nobody's thinking, we know now, they know now, everybody knows now that he was messaging people that he's about to go shoot up a school.
No,
everybody knows now.
The teacher told Adrian that he was shooting.
He was trying to do this. He was speeding towards the school to do it and just happened to have not negotiated the turn and went into this culvert. But at the moment, that's not what it looks like. That's not what it looks like to him. It's not what it looks like to anybody. It's not what it looks like to anybody, any of the officers that come up. But then there is gunfire. And that's important. So he shoots here towards the field.
Now he admits to the gunfire.
At the same time and around, Adrian is starting his response. And Adrian also comes up Grove Street. And this is important. He'll talk to you about the fact that there was Melody Flores. As Ramos is walking this way, and he does walk. He shoots here, starts walking this way. You'll hear that people from the funeral home, the homes up here, can see that he hide behind cars, and they call that in. But that's not something communicated over the radio to the police. But they do call it in that he is here in the parking lot. By the time Adrian is getting here to the property, he understands. He starts to understand because now the people are calling 911, as Bill talked about, and now they're saying that shots are fired. So Adrian here, as he's coming down here, he starts to hear shots are fired. This is a gate that gets onto that school property. It should be closed. It wasn't. And Adrian drives right through here. So he is responding, and you're seeing shots fired, hearing shots fired, understanding, okay, this is not just an accident anymore. And then you'll hear that Melody Flores, the teacher that the prosecution talked to you about, the teacher that the prosecutor said, well, she acted. Right, and we agree. She did see kids, and she told them. When we talk about the west part of the building, south part of the building, west part of the building, south part of the building, she told them, "Get back inside. Get back inside." As she's over here telling them this, and he's here firing rounds, and you're going to know that that's where he's around this area firing rounds. Adrian is coming here. Once Ramos is behind these cars in the parking lot, Adrian doesn't see him at all, never does. The prosecutors never ever saw, not in his life, ever saw this gunman.
Doesn't matter. He's supposed to go to the fight.
Flores is here. Adrian sees Flores from that distance and thinks that she may be the gunman. Or that she may have, or somebody, he doesn't know if it's a man or a woman. You'll see the distances, it's too far to tell. But he thinks that he's hearing that there's a person. Hearing that he knows there's shots fired. He believes that this person is either grappling with a gunman, or is the gunman themselves.
Is what we doing?
The reason he thinks that they might have grappled is because, as Bill said, she trips and she falls in, and this is all dirt. So there's like this cloud of dust, and it looks like from that distance. What does Adrian do? He acts. You will watch him, and there's a camera from this funeral home that will show this. He comes in, and he spots her. He zeroes in on her, doesn't know it's a her, doesn't know it's a coach, doesn't know it's a teacher.
Okay.
Thinks that that's what he's there to respond to. Thinks that that's potentially the danger that he's there for. And he drives straight to her. He goes straight at her. Until he gets here, and this is where Adrian ends up parking his car, and you'll see that. Adrian parks here. She falls down here in the dirt. Remember, this is the south side of the building. 5 seconds after he gets out of the car and realizes this isn't a gunman and there's nobody else here but her, and he's trying to ask what's happening. 5 seconds after that, the shooter starts shooting into the side of this school.
Okay.
And he does. You can see by the shell casings, they'll line here, and you'll hear that shell casings, when a gun is fired, they go back, slightly back and to the right, slightly back to the right. And you can use the shell casings. There's never any over here, so he wasn't over here firing at Melody Flores. They're here, and they go right up the building here, so he gets in here. So, what they're talking about is the gunman is moving up this school. And these distances, when you go and you see it in person, or you see it in some of these videos, you see the pictures, it doesn't do it justice. This and this, there's nobody that can see or understand here what's going on over here. There's not. She is telling him, but she's going to testify to you, that when he got out, she told him he's in the building. And she was 100% wrong. He was standing right here, shooting here. And that's okay that she's wrong. We're not requiring her to be right. This is the most tragic day of Melody Flores' life. It's the most stressful thing that she's ever been through. But, as the prosecutor says, Adrian says, well, but she's telling me that he's over there.
Right.
And that he's wearing black. And what did Bill say? He said, well, what did he do? He didn't do nothing but call the radio for other people to come. That's what police officers are supposed to do. Whenever you hear information, you have to call it out to everybody else. Everybody else.
It's not the only thing police officers.
So you'll hear that at that time now, 3 officers arrive right here. One of them has a rifle. They see him about to go in the building. One of them asks for permission to shoot. Permission, there's not even a chance for a response.
Why would you ask for permission to shoot?
By the time
these cops are worst.
they turn around, he's gotten inside.
Permission to shoot, sir. Who does that?
They didn't see any of this. They see it because they're in a direct line of sight to that door, to that west entrance. Adrian is dealing with a woman who is going to tell you and going to testify to you that she's telling Adrian that he's in the building. But it's clear that these gunshots, as he's moving up this building, it's clear that those gunshots are coming from outside. What Mr. Turner said was that he was supposed to make it to the corner of this building here. That's what he's talking about. Make it to the corner and distract delay. The distance from this point to this corner, there's nothing in between. And you'll hear that Adrian is doing as he's supposed to do. Once these gunshots happen, once he starts shooting into this side of the building, Adrian thinks they're taking fire. He does. He gets to the front of his car and he's trying to use the car as cover. There's a car. He has his car. This corner of the building is about 45 seconds away, walking from where his car is. Maybe 30. 32, 33, 34, 35, depending on how fast you walk or run. But you have to run through open. But his car is right there, so he doesn't do nothing. He gets behind his car to try to figure out where the gunfire is coming from. You're going to hear that these officers here, as the shooter is shooting into the building, all the way up, these officers here, they think that the gunfire is coming at them. Because of the nature of gunfire, and we're going to talk about it. Once you have a rifle fire, it's going to bounce, and it bounces off of these structures, and it echoes, and it comes back to the people, and it causes confusion. So they think that the shots are coming at them. The shots aren't, but it's understandable they think so. He thinks they're coming at him. she's going to tell you that she's telling him that he's in the building when he knows that he's not in the building. But when he calls out that he's on the west side, you'll know when he understands and knows. When Adrian finally figures out where he is, their indictment says, knowing the general location of the shooter. He does call out on the radio the general location of the shooter. 1 second after the shooter's already entered the building. When Adrian is saying that he's by the cars in this lot, he's not there, he's inside. These guys saw him go in. These guys here saw what happened. Adrian is here and cannot see that. Now, other things begin to happen. So, at a certain time, and even you're going to hear these guys, they still don't know what his intent is. They think that they're setting up here. They're trying to figure out. They know he's wrecked and he shot at these people. They're assuming that he's trying to get away from them. Nobody still is assuming this is what ultimately happens, is tragedy. Once something like this happens, right, this was the only and the first time ever that a school shooting starts with a wreck and a culprit. Now, it's part of the training. Don't get confused. Don't get confused by the fact that there may be other things going on. Just like if there was a robbery at this funeral home and somebody's running out of the funeral home, it's not the first assumption back then for a police officer to say, oh, he's robbing the funeral home, then he's going to run over here and he's going to go into the classrooms and shoot the children. It's not the first assumption. Now, of course, that doesn't excuse it. It's wrong. It contributes to the confusion. So as we get here, you'll see that, I think Bill said, his boss arrives. What happens is that some of the officers, as he's going in this way, some of the officers bring the car around to try to figure out, like, is he trying to get around here? You'll see that Coronado and you'll see that Chief Arredondo come this way and this way to where Adrian is. By the time that they talk to Adrian, you have Sergeant Page that pulled in and arrived. So what's happening is that Adrian's trying to call it out. He sees other people. He then hears and understands, eventually when Sergeant Page gets there, as he's trying to brief him about what's happening, he hears that he's in the building. And Adrian is one of the first 3 people to go in. This is not a man that does nothing. This is not a man that is sitting and doing nothing. It's a man who is confused. It's a man who's talking, who has made assumptions that are understandable that turned out to be wrong. But he was trying. He was going towards that danger. And this is a man who, when it was time and they are standing here and it's time, because you'll hear that Coronado did say, like, he's in the building, we got to go. But Sergeant Page never said any of that. Sergeant Page said, we're standing there, we hear the gunshots from inside the building, we made the decision. Everybody's kind of making that decision at the same time. The first 3 people to go in, when Adrian goes in there, when he goes into the building, Sergeant Page is in front of him and he goes in behind him in the building, the gunman comes out of the classroom and takes shots at other officers coming in from the other side.
They should
Adrian
have killed
Gonzales
that dude.
did not fail to act. The gunman turns that way instead of that way. He's right in the line of fire. And he was willing to be there in a hallway with a rifle with no real protection from a rifle. They had nothing that would protect them from a rifle. That wasn't going to stop the rifle. If he turned around and shot him right in the chest, right past the Kevlar, that bullet kills him. And he did. He went in. He's one of the first in the building. But they get backed off because the shooter does not come out of the classroom. But you'll see him in the videos. Does not come out. But the gun comes out, shoots at other officers that are trying to come from the other way. They back off. You're also going to hear that Adrian has a radio. None of the officers' radios in Uvalde ISD, none of them, you'll hear what they say, break. That just means none of them work. They cannot communicate inside the building.
Oh, boy.
His chief tells him to go out of the building and call SWAT. Adrian does. You'll also hear that as people start arriving, right, because eventually there'll be 374 officers that arrive. They, in any of the indictment they read, they are not charging Adrian with the conduct of any officer in that hallway. Anybody that was standing there, anybody that was like getting hand sanitizer or anything that you might have seen. He is not being charged with any of that conduct. He is not being charged, in fact, with any other conduct of his. The only thing where they stop is they stop after the shooter enters 111 and 112 and shoots at or in the direction of the children. That's where it stops. So what the state tried to make you believe was this insane amount of time that he had to do all of these things from the time that he's here, from the time he first contacts Melody Flores to the time the shooter goes in the building on the side is about 1 minute. That's what we're talking about. It's about 1 minute. So he's trying to get this information, understand it, communicate it, figure it out, and it's about one, and also protect himself and the teacher. I mean, he's trying to make sure that both of them are not being shot at because they don't know. That's 1 minute of time. This isn't a man waiting around. This isn't a man failing to act. They're not going to prove that. But what they are going to do, I'll tell you, they'll talk to you about it too, what they are going to do is they're going to show you the worst things that you've ever seen. You will not come out of this trial the same person in your heart. I'm not. They're not. They're not. They're not. It's traumatic. They're not. Nobody will ever be the same. And we're not comparing what we've seen, but you can't imagine the pain. But what the prosecution wants you to do is see that, see those horrible things, and get so mad at Adrian that you convict him. So mad at Adrian that you say, convict him because of this horrible thing that's happened. And I can't even describe it, what they're going to do. They're going to try to play on your emotions. They're going to try to do that. The monster who did this to these kids, the monster who hurt these children is dead. He is dead. He doesn't get this justice. Hopefully he's got a different one. But he doesn't have this justice. There's not going to be this trial for him because he was shot and killed as he should have been by police officers on the scene. So now they're looking for somebody to put in that chair, to put you in these chairs. But showing you those pictures, like they're going to, I want you to be prepared for it. And I want you to know that it's going to hurt you. And I want you to know that it hurts us too. Thinking about anything these kids went through, it's terrible. I told y'all yesterday, I got a 4-year-old, 1-year-old. It's the hardest thing that I'll do. But what the judge will tell you is that the law and the evidence are the only things that can guide you here. The only things you can use to come to your verdict. And I'd ask Mr. Cook to address you at this time.
Wow.
Please, Court Judge.
You guys convinced?
I mean, Jason laid it out for you. I'm going to go over some specifics. We're gonna talk about those photos in a second, and I think Jason appropriately talked about them. And he's right. I mean, there's an animal involved in this situation, a monster, and he's no longer here. And that monster can't sit in that chair. And so what we have to do is we have to deal with what the government is doing and trying to have you focus on, because the monster's not here. And so the phrase that you're going to hear throughout this trial that law enforcement talk about a lot is called totality of the circumstances. And I'm going to ask you to keep that in your mind. We're going to ask you as we go over some of the specifics that Jason talked to you about, because this is dynamic. There wasn't a call initially for school shooting. You're going to hear something called a 1050. It's an accident. As Jason said, there was an accident. There was an accident, and Adrian was doing his duty at the high school. You're going to learn that the school, and you're going to hear about a lot of the school, and I'm not here to protect the school. I really don't care, because the school has a lot of blame. And you're going to hear other agencies gave the school a lot of blame. And one of the things that they should be blamed for is they didn't have a full-time officer. Adrian's full-time at the high school. Adrian said, well, there's an accident. I'm going to help. It's a small community. The agencies help each other, DPS, Uvalde PD, Independent School District. I mean, they all help each other, and they share radio transmission. And by the way, we're going to ask you to focus on the radio transmission. It's very important what was transmitted and what officers knew or didn't know during this very fluid and dynamic situation. So this is just we're going to go over this briefly, okay? So this is what we're talking about. not the scale obviously, school. You're going to hear about, what am I doing? Yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. Yep, thank you very much. Sorry, guys. Okay. So you're going to hear it at 11:28. At some point, we don't know for sure, but maybe around 11:20, this monster shoots his own grandma. And so this monster gets in a car and he thinks he's running away from a murder of his grandma. And so he's coming down, and you will hear that he tells people online, I'm going to shoot up the school. There's times in there, and that's why we don't know exactly when he shoots his grandma, because he did that before and after, not to law enforcement, not to 911, to online people. But 11:28:23, he wrecks in that culvert. He doesn't manipulate the corner properly, and he crashes. You're going to hear Gilbert Limones, as Bill said, call 911. You're going to hear the 911 video from Gilbert, and it's going to be emotional. Because Gilbert's walking out there, you can hear it, saying there's an accident. He's walking out there, oh God, they're shooting, he's shooting at me. Because as they were going to the culvert to help, this monster is shooting up at them from the culvert. He runs back. He lets the dispatch know he's walking to the school. He's walking to the school, and you will hear Gilbert, and I assume he's going to testify and say, in the name of Jesus, Lord, please protect those children. Oh God, please protect those children. Please hurry. Yes, sir, we're on their way. But what I want you to focus on is, how was that dispatched? Incident involving a gun, not shooting at a school. Again, bailouts. Jason talked to you about what you're going to hear about bailouts and how many they have. This community deals with those type of bailouts. And so he deals with that. Between 11:30 roughly, 05, and 11:31:34, he's going to walk very deliberately, as Bill said, towards the school. At some point, he starts shooting at the school from the parking lot. You will also hear, not just Gilbert, the funeral owner, say that she saw him hiding between cars. It's important. So at some point, Adrian realizes it, because it's very unclear on the dispatch, you'll hear him yourself, that there's a gun involved. Not towards children, there's just a gun involved, walking towards the school. So Adrian knows in his mind instantaneously that this is not just a crash, it's not a 1050, something with the school. And so he's driving, and at 11:31:41, here's Melody, and she's helped. To Bill's point, she's yelling at kids to stay in the building. Okay, so she's out here. You're going to see Adrian drive all the way into the complex, and drive back here. It's important. This is the east side of the building. This is going to be considered the west side, and you will see the south side, and this is the west side. Excuse me. He makes contact with Melody. Now, there's some other times that are important. This is at 11:31:55, roughly. Okay, times are going to matter on this, because they're trying to hold Adrian accountable for what he did or didn't do, and what he knew and didn't know, and that's important. So at 11:31:55, he's parked, and he gets out of his vehicle and makes contact with Melody. Now, at 11:32:09, it's not on here, but 11:32:09, he dispatches, and he says, shots fired, shots fired. So now he's taking cover. What's important, though, it's here, is that 11:32:23, Officer Mendoza shows up at the corner, on the west side of the building. Pay attention to these times. He's already shooting. He's shooting at the side of the building. He shows up. He says shots fired. No one is going to testify that Adrian could see anything. And you'll see some pictures. Look, I mean, he's way over here. Way over here in his car, you'll see the picture. And then the shooter, that monster, is walking up, taking shots. He has no line of sight. Line of sight is important in this trial. 11:32:29, Officer Saucedo shows up on the west side of the building. Remember where Adrian's at? He's with Melody on the south side, but way where you can see the east side. 11:32, Sergeant Coronado shows up. Remember when Bill said his boss? His boss showed up a lot sooner than one running over here. There at this point, you will hear that Officer Mendoza believed he was under fire. Now, this is important because you're going to hear about echoes and vibrations and when people are shooting near buildings and how it sounds. Melody thinks she's being shot at. All I can tell you is, do we believe that she's being sincere? We do. I mean, she has no reason to lie about that. What you're going to find interesting, I think, and we think it's interesting, but is that she comes in to talk to law enforcement 7 days later. They don't go to her. She's not interviewed the next day. 7 days after this incident, she comes in and says, I have something to say. She's listened to the media. She's watched all reports, and she comes in. And I'm going to say this respectfully because we're not going to try to beat her up. We're just going to talk to her. She's wrong about almost everything. She describes Adrian as Officer Page. Completely describes him differently. She says that the shooter, that monster, didn't have a rifle. For sure he had a handgun. She thought that he shot at her, and all we can say, and the government will have to admit to this, but there's no evidence going to show that there is any, that you're going to hear something called defects. It's kind of damage from any type of gunfire. There's no evidence, objective evidence, that there was any shooting this way. No shells or rounds over here, no holes through the buildings. These are just metal buildings, so an AR-15 would have gone straight through that. No evidence of that. So she's wrong about a lot of things. And then she's also wrong, and she tells the ranger of what door and how this animal got into the building. She's wrong about all that. Okay? And we think it's very sincere, by the way, but this is 7 days later. So these gentlemen are here. These officers are here, Mendoza, Saucedo, and Coronado, at these times. Now, these times are important. Okay? These times are very important. We talked about 3209, Adrian radio, shots fired. So Ramos is walking up this side of the building, and he gets into the school. And that's important.
So I say, why did those officers
we're going
not
to talk
stop
about
him?
it, and you're going to hear about agencies evaluating,
That's
different
what he's trying to
agencies, and
say.
I'll tell you about who they are in a second, evaluating this incident. And every one of them wonders why this school door is unlocked. This school door is unlocked. This school door is supposed to be locked. I get passionate because that school door should have been locked. And you're going to hear evidence that if there's anything that could have changed this incident, if that school door was locked, and it should have been.
Yep, that's true though.
So he gets into the school at some point.
That door was unlocked.
This monster enters the school at 11:32:58. These gentlemen have been at this scene, these officers, long before that. On the west side, not the south side, with a long rifle, not a handgun, with cover because their car's there in a formation. So you're going to hear Saucedo shows up at the time he does, literally seconds after Mendoza. Mendoza thinks he's taking fire, but there's no evidence that Ramos shot that way. Zero evidence. They're not even going to try to assess that. Claim that. But still, Mendoza thinks, and he talks about, he describes it. He's getting behind the car, he's trying to get behind the engine block. Saucedo drives up and blocks him so he can cover his cover officer, which I understand that if it was really happening. Saucedo gets out with a rifle. Coronado shows up. Sarge, can I shoot? No response, turns back, and they acknowledge he went into the building.
Those dudes should be charged too, to be honest.
There's an acknowledgement from these officers
Sarge, can I shoot?
that he went into the building.
You're never supposed to ask a supervisor
They
if you
didn't go
can
to the
shoot.
building.
It doesn't work that way.
And we're not trying to say blame them also. I'm
Yeah,
just
you
saying
should
this
blame
is
them.
fluid. They think because of all these bailouts. Can I just tell you, we think the evidence is going to show, and we know it's going to show, because the officers were thinking this. This is not Adrian, this is them right now. Mendoza, Saucedo, and Coronado. They couldn't even wrap their head around the fact that this potential could be a school shooting. They thought that this person with a gun was trying to get away from officers and was going to cross through the school to go out the east side of the building. That's what they thought. That's what you're going to hear them say. Let me tell you what's super important, because Bill told you, the government told you, that Adrian is assessing the situation. You're going to hear about that. You're going to hear about observing, orienting yourself to the situation, deciding, then acting. It's called OODA loop, okay? You're going to hear about evidence like that. This is objective evidence, not anybody's opinion, because you're going to hear it yourself. At 11:32:59, 1 second after this monster got into the building, Adrian calls out, he should be on the west side, supposed to be wearing black. Why? Because Melody's with him, telling him information, and he's collecting data. He's heard shots, he doesn't know where that's coming from. Everybody thinks they're being shot at, including Melody, including these officers, and he does what his training tells him to do. Relay information. He's relaying information. He's not seeing anything. Nothing's been done in his presence. When they read out the indictment, nothing was done in his presence. He relays it. These times are critical And we're going to humbly ask you to stay focused on these times. He's reporting as he's receiving information. Note what's going on where he believes he should be, near the teacher parking lot. He's already in the building. And then 22 seconds later, he is shooting into those classrooms. And then seconds later, he's in the classroom. Opportunity and ability. This is what it's going to play out to. I know when you speak in generalities, it's easy to make an accusation until you have to peel the onion back, until you have to come into specifics. And we've asked you guys, we asked you for your permission in jury selection if we could ask tough questions. And it's always tough to ask tough questions about a tough case.
The problem is the trainings, you have to go inside and stop the shooter. That's the problem.
We're going to do it because we have to. But this is what the evidence is going to show. And the government's going to have to stand up when this is all over and after you've heard all the evidence. And they're going to have to they're going to have to say, we want you to hold a man responsible that as he walks into this fluid situation, drives into this fluid, goes to the danger, drives into the storm, because he thinks that he's going to this person, this suspect, with a gun. He doesn't stick back and create a perimeter, with all respect to these officers. He goes in. He thinks and then he realizes it's the coach. At the time, he didn't know that. And you'll see the funeral video, like Jason said. And they're going to have to say that when he radios, because that's when he knows, Melody's with him. She's not going to know what times. A second after, he's already in the building. How can he delay, distract, or deter someone when he doesn't see him? He's completely on the opposite side of a building. And by the time he finds out the situation, observes and orients, and then communicates, he's already in the building. Then seconds later, this animal is stealing children from Uvalde community. So what the government will say and do is they'll want you to focus on Coronado's video. Remember Coronado, the one that was here initially and was asked to shoot, and then and he'll talk to you about it, and then goes to this side, and you'll see him running up from the other side. You'll see his body cam video running up this way. One thing that we want you to focus on though is his body cam video and Mendoza's body cam video. They have body cam videos.
They cowards too.
They both interestingly start at 11:35:10. Write it down. 11:35:10. At the same time, because someone from the government's investigation synced all these videos together, and I shouldn't say all of these, there's not that many, but synced all these videos together. And they both started 11:35:10. You saw what time they showed up. There's got to be body cam from when they were here talking, perceiving things. They both, and that's what you're going to see. And so as Coronado is running at 11:35:10, he's already come all the way around, and he meets Chief Arredondo, and then they start running up. And then they finally run into Mel, because she leaves Adrian's point and goes to the school. She leaves, and Adrian stays there in cover, and he had communicated information. And you're going to hear that a Lieutenant Vargas shows up, and then eventually a Sergeant Page shows up, who Melody describes as Adrian, and she was mistaken about that. And then as Coronado and Arredondo are walking up and running up, there's shots fired. Now you will see, and we anticipate that the government will focus on this. On Coronado's body cam, it's moving, that you see Adrian and Paige standing there. Now they're not standing there eating something, or they're standing there talking. Adrian had head cover, Paige drives up, there's a realization that he didn't take any fire, so they get out, Sergeant Page gets out, and it's really a moment. You're walking, they're like this, you're going to see them walking towards the school, then they hear shots fired. We can hear Sergeant Coronado say, "Get in the school!" And he says, "Oh shit, get in the school!" And he's yelling and he's out of breath. But there's no evidence that neither one of them heard him. They were so far from him. God bless you. They didn't hear him. And they immediately run into school. They're one of the first ones, if not the first ones, Paige and Adrian, in the school. And then there's some officers on the other side.
And they ran away.
And as he said, they take fire.
And then they run away after that.
That's what this is going to boil down to. But we anticipate they're going to want you to focus on that literally that moment, that second that you see Adrian and Sergeant Page standing there and then walking towards the school, and then they sprint into the school, and you see Adrian's gun drawn, and he's in the hallway. Goes in again. We also think they're going to focus on time to enter, because Bill talked about that in opening. This 3 minutes and whatever seconds. There's a lot going on in these 3 minutes. We're going to focus and break it down. It's not about just saying there's 3 minutes, because their indictment doesn't cover all 3 minutes. Their indictment covers what they decided to prosecute on is when he made it all the way, that animal made it into the building and then started shooting into the school. Remember? At 11:33:22. That's what it specifically covers, because that's when the assaults begin. Not the 3 minutes and whatever seconds after, as many officers are on the scene at that time and surrounding the school. But we'll talk about that, and we'll cross-examine on that, and you'll hear evidence about that. And then they're going to focus on Melody Flores, and I kind of gave you a heads up about Melody Flores. She's just wrong about a lot of things, and it's traumatic, it's stressful, as Jason said. And I'm not saying this to scare you but we talked about this in jury selection. None of us, you will not leave this trial the same. You just won't. And thank you for taking on this role, but it's just, we're going to talk about the photos in a second. But Melody's wrong about a lot of things. Her times, she's with Adrian, not sure how long, so Adrian's dealing with her at the time, and she's with him. There's shots being fired. She sees bullets or glass breaking. Officers are coming, they're around. You're going to hear radio dispatch. Again, that's going to be really important about what's being communicated to the officers by the dispatcher and then by other officers. This is not in the comfort of a courtroom as one of the Rangers during their investigation you would hear say, with 20/20 hindsight and playing Monday morning quarterback. That's from a Texas Ranger, not from us. Okay? Because you're going to hear about interviews. And so they're going to really want you to focus on these photos. And I wish they wouldn't, not because it hurts us, because that's what they want those photos to do. It's because it hurts those precious people over there. That's why. I shared with you in board what my family's been through, and so I get it. I get it. And so we're going to ask you to really, well, if you have to get emotional, you get emotional. You may. I anticipate you will, depending on what you see. This is emotional. This is an emotional trial. People are going to get emotional. Bill's a good man. He got emotional. But we're going to ask you not to make a decision off emotion, because that doesn't bring justice to anybody. But I do want you to focus on this. There were multiple agency investigations. Multiple. The DOJ did an investigation. Looked at all the evidence that the government's going to show you. There's not some secret evidence, with all due respect to them, that they're going to show you that the DOJ didn't see. Texas House of Representatives did an investigation. They had a committee. There's not new evidence that's going to be presented to you that they didn't see. This report has a lot of criticism to go around to the school. It really has to do with that door and other things, by the way. Radios that can't work inside. Officer not assigned to the school. Lockdown procedures that weren't followed. A lot of things. Way to communicate. Individual locks. The actual classroom, 111, wasn't locked.
Wow.
111 wasn't locked. You'll hear some evidence of could it even be locked, and did they know about it, and what should have happened. You're also going to hear evidence of the Uvalde police policy from 2015 and whether it's ever been replaced about how officers are supposed to respond. Should they wait for backup cover? Should they communicate? Should they observe? And training is going to matter in this case, and so we're going to ask you to stay focused. You're going to hear a lot of training, but again, totality of the circumstances of what Adrian was
I'm going to
experiencing.
object to him talking about evidence. I mean, he's supposed to be doing an opening statement, outlining the evidence that are going to present. Right now, he's talking about third-party investigations. Those agencies did not have the full investigation of the Uvalde grand jury, and I think that unless he says that the evidence will show you that they're going to present about these third-party investigations, I think this isn't doing nothing but misleading the jury as to the evidence that they're going to hear in this case.
I think that's right for cross-examination, Judge.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, what the lawyers say in opening statement is not to be construed as evidence. They're summarizing what they believe the evidence will show. If the evidence doesn't show that, you can recall that.
Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Department of Homeland Security reviewed evidence. City of Uvalde hired Mr. Prado, reviewed evidence.
This is definitely not going to be an easy case.
Adrian fully cooperated every time.
The defense is coming out swinging.
In a corner hiding, he didn't hold information, he cooperated, he talked. He talked to investigators, he talked to the Rangers, he talked to whoever wanted to talk to him because he wanted to help.
This dude is a bulldog. This dude is a bulldog right
We're going to ask you to focus on what the evidence will show Adrian did. He took the call. He took the call to go to a school that he wasn't assigned to. He drove to the suspect into the storm, thinking that it was the person that had this gun walking towards the school.
Scrappy, so what is she objecting for? She's
gathered
breaking his
information
flow.
the way his training told him to do.
He knows
That's
that
what
he can
you're
do
gonna
that,
see.
but she's
He's
breaking
supposed to
his
gather
flow.
information so he can let other officers know what's going on. He went into a building after relaying that information. One of the first to go in, as we talked about. He called SWAT because he was asked to call SWAT because those radios couldn't work in the building. Like Jason said, break. I can't break. Meaning I can't dispatch. I can't communicate. So he goes outside to do that. Many officers are on the scene at that time. He stood perimeter because he didn't know if he was watching the east side. He's on the south side. There's a west side. Other officers are inside by this time, and so he stood perimeter at the school. He tried to find out if class was even in session. He didn't even know if class was in session. They needed to find out. You're going to hear that the officers are there kids in the school? They didn't even know. There wasn't certainty that even kids were in the school. Remember, he's coming from a high school. They call it Mexican Park, right? That's the way they call it in Uvalde, and where many of the high schoolers were there. So these kids even in the school? It's not his school. This is not where he patrols on a regular basis. And you're going to hear evidence he evacuated children. You're going to see it on Coronado's. They're breaking windows and they're getting kids out as now they're waiting for. You're going to hear Bortec. These are people that have rated shields that can take a high-powered rifle because they were under-resourced. That community was under-resourced. They didn't have a shield, a rated shield for high-powered. You're going to hear that there's shields for handguns and then there's shields for high-powered rifles. And they were waiting for that. So he's evacuating children from other classrooms on the other side. And he's checking on Ruiz. You're going to hear about an officer, Ruben Ruiz, who he communicated with. Was tragic part of this. He's talking to his wife, and she's been injured. She passed. And Ruiz wanted to go inside, and so, and I love my wife. Who wouldn't want to just go in there, you know? And they took his gun away from Officer Ruiz. And so, and Adrian kept going back and checking on him twice. He's doing all these things at the same time. Got the building plans because they were asking for it, because people didn't understand the layout of this building. He got that for them. And he ultimately secured the master key, because they needed the master key. And then you're going to hear some tactics about how you breach an outward swinging door versus an inward swinging door, and what is needed, and whether they had the equipment to do that, which the evidence will show they didn't. This is what Adrian did. I mean, the government wants to make it seem like he just sat there, you know. He didn't just sit there. He did what he could with what he knew at the time, and this was fluid and it was a dynamic situation. And we're going to ask you, and I don't know how you do it, and we all have to do it a different way, is to stay focused on this, because this is going to be emotional. And because we want justice, right? We talked about that. We talked about that our system works off of you and Lady Justice with a blindfold, and that's what we're going to ask you to do, because evil is not rectified with injustice. Pure evil visited that precious community. It did, but it's not rectified with injustice. And so at the end of this trial, we're going to come back to you and humbly ask you to consider the law and the facts and properly apply them. And we're going to be requesting and asking for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you for your attention.
All right. It's going to be a tough case.
Everybody booking the rule?
But they're going to,
Yes, Judge.
let me see. Give them a break. So,
You know who your witnesses are. The rule has been invoked, so please instruct them and don't let them come into the courtroom, please, while the testimony is going on.
Yes, sir. They're going to get started right away, or they're going to
Ladies
take
and
a
gentlemen, I
break?
see some of you are taking notes, which is great. I'll instruct you at this time. If that assists you in concentrating on the evidence, please do it. But I will tell you, when you go back to deliberate, the bailiff's going to hold your notes, because if there's a conflict as to evidence, we rely on the official court record. But if it helps you in concentrating, please continue to do it.
Give them a break, Judge.
Can I see yours up here real quick on an unrelated matter?
Okay. All right. This is going to be a tough case, but they're going to find him guilty. And I'm going to tell you when I'm going to find him guilty, because the training says that he had to go into the school, that he had to engage the shooter. So, yes, he called for backup. Yes, he relayed the information that he got. All of that stuff is good stuff, but that's not the training. All right. The training is you go and you neutralize the threat. So when she said, hey, he's in the parking lot. He was supposed to radio that in and then go engage. That's exactly what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get on his radio, listen, I'm told that the shooter is on the west side of the parking lot. And then after that, he was supposed to go and engage. That's what he was supposed to do. He wasn't supposed to stay where he's at. Now, my issue with the prosecution is that they are just going after him and Chief Arredondo. That's my issue. My issue is that all of those officers should have been charged. All of them. There's no training that says a police officer has to ask permission from a supervisor in order to use deadly physical force. You use deadly physical force when you decide that somebody is committing an action that requires you use deadly physical force to protect your life and the life of others, such as using a deadly weapon on other people. Firing a weapon authorizes you to use deadly physical force. A gunman going into a school authorizes you to use deadly physical force, even if that person is not firing that weapon. You say, drop the gun, and then you shoot if they don't drop the gun. So the fact that this officer said, oh my gosh, you know what? First of all, they thought that they were under fire. So we've already met that burden. And then they watch, oh, can I shoot? He doesn't hear anything. And then so they just watch this gunman go into the school and they assume that he's just going to walk through the school and go out the other side. How do you make these assumptions? I don't know. They should all be charged. They should all be charged. Looks like so far the only people they've indicted is this guy and Arredondo. Could they charge those other people? Sure, they could. You know, there's no statute of limitations that's reached yet or anything like that. But so far, they've only indicted these two people. So I don't know what's going on there with the prosecution. But listen, the defense, the first attorney didn't like his style. I told you guys I had a defense that I think they should play out for this guy. The second attorney laid out, which is their plan. They knew that, you know, their team. I just didn't see it yet. But once this attorney started talking, that's the defense that I said they should have had. That he did the best he could with the information he had. And that it was a chaotic situation and he was confused as to where the shooter was. So he felt that the best thing for him to do was to relay the information that he was getting from the witness in order to try and coordinate the attack. I mean, the response rather on the shooter. And that's what they did. It's going to be a tough trial. Our emotions tell us, screw this guy. But remember, the jury is going to be seeing all the evidence and the jury is going to be charged to make a decision based on the evidence and not on their emotions. And it's going to be a tough trial. It's not going to be easy to say this guy is guilty and throw the whole burden of and weight of that tragedy on his shoulders. When in totality, he played a small part in a big tragedy. That's a fact. But I think it's a good chance they will come out with a guilty verdict because of the training. He got the training. If he did not get the training, he had a scapegoat. I wasn't trained to deal with this, but he had the training. And the training was you go and neutralize the threat. And he didn't do it. He stayed where he was at. So yes, he went into the building later, but he went in the building way after the fact. He didn't go into the building when he was notified by the witness where the shooter was. Shooter's in the parking lot. He didn't go to the parking lot. Shooter went to the other side of the building. He didn't go there. But he should not be the only one. Now, hold on. I think they're taking a break.
Yes, sir.
I know.
All
right, so guys, they're about to start testimony right now. I'm not going to even do that to you guys and start off with this testimony. I have to leave. I have to go to work soon. To take a shower, I have to do a lot of things. So I'm going to be listening to this on my own while I get ready for work. But I would definitely, I thank you guys for watching it with me. I'm going to end my live stream now, but please do continue watching this because this is going to be so interesting. And I'd love to talk about it with you guys. So we all got to be, you know, up on point with this. All right. So make sure you hit the like button. I'll see you guys on the next one. Strategic, I'm running so I don't keep you guys too long. Strategic is out of here. Peace.